Welcome to Face2Face. This is a show about change and about what's next. It's a show that wants to ask questions, peel back the layers of our average everyday experience, and go beyond scratching the surface. We interview amazing people with incredible ideas and stories who have done wild, weird, and wonderful things. Remember that imagination shared creates collaboration, and collaboration creates community, and community inspires social change. I'm David Peck, and this is Face2Face. So my next interview is with Jason Anderson. He is a fun guy. I think I could say that. We had a great time chatting about the Toronto International Film Festival this year. We talked a little bit about music, I think. He's the lead programmer for Shortcuts, by the way. But we talked about music and experimental film. Brandon Cronenberg's name came up, and we talked about how he and his partner Robin go through over 4,500 submissions. They whittle it down, carefully whittle it down to this year 55 films, short films. And we talk about why short film is practical, but it's also meaningful and powerful all at the same time, and how 55% of the films that were submitted this year are from women directors or co-directed by women. I think a third Canadian films. I hope I'm getting some of these stats right here, Jason. And we talked about how it's also a pretty good year for weird. So you're going to want to pay attention to that, and why the film All Cats Are Gray in the Dark is Jason's film of choice this year, and why you're going to want to pay a little bit more attention to that. And the tickets are selling really well, says Jason, so make sure you get out there and you get them soon. TIFF.net, you can pick up your films there, of course. The catalog is online as well. There's daily updates. There's an email you can sign up for as well. And don't forget, face2facelive.ca for a whole host of other interviews with people that I'm going to be talking to, not only at TIFF this year, 2019, but filmmakers and writers starting to focus more and more on film all the time. Casual conversation, intelligent inspiration. That's what we're trying for here on Face2Face. And if you want to support the work I'm doing, you can do that financially and sign up on Patreon. We've got a couple. We now have actually a few official donors online, monthly donors online through Patreon for Face2Face, which is kind of exciting. And if you can't do that, and I totally get that, if you wouldn't mind leaving us a review on iTunes or Spotify or one of the usual suspects out there platform-wise, we would appreciate that. It really does help us digitally, gets our numbers out there. Spread the word, forward podcasts on, sign up for our email newsletter. You can also advertise on Face2Face if you want. Shout-outs, banner ads on the website, etc. We've got a pretty good following. And if you want to learn more about the work I'm doing, davidpecklive.com, you can purchase a copy of Real Change is Incremental there. You can hire me to speak at an event coming up, or to possibly even co-produce a podcast. And don't forget, rabble.ca. I also exist on that platform. And there's a whole host of other writers and podcasters and journalists and people there telling it like it is, news for the rest of us. But don't touch that dial. If you're heading into TIFF, and even if you're not, you're going to hear about a lot of films that you're going to want to pay attention to, and TIFF is a great place to see them. Jason Anderson, the lead programmer for Shortcuts, coming right up. Well, welcome to Face2Face. We're joined by a very special guest here with us today. We have Jason Anderson from the Toronto International Film Festival. He's the lead programmer for Shortcuts, amongst other things. I think he's probably going to talk a little bit about that as well. Jason, thanks for your time today. I really appreciate having you on Face2Face.
Terrific. Thanks so much for having me.
I got to say, I've been interviewing people at TIFF now for about five or 6 years, something like that. And it started really slow. I think I had the 900-page TIFF catalog that comes out every year.
Oh, yes.
And I was flipping through it. I can, most of us probably remember that fresh ink smell. And I thought, hey, look, there's these names on the bottom left here. I wonder if I reached out to some of those people, if I could actually start getting interviews. And I did. And then I really had the sense of actually, connecting with you guys, programmers and the publicists and so on. And it's just kind of exploded. I think I'm coming up on over 200 interviews at TIFF in the last 5 years. So how crazy is that?
I'm happy to hear. It's funny for me because I just think about how, I used to do the same gig. I mean, I was in the media for a long time too. So I like that kind of sensation. You get to the end of a TIFF and you think, how did I just do like 40 interviews?
Yeah. How did that happen
How did
again?
that happen?
Yeah. That doesn't make any sense.
No.
So shortcuts. Tell me what a short is, and then let's talk about at least a few of those 55 that I think are premiering this year at TIFF 2019. And by the way, where do people buy tickets again? It's TIFF.net, isn't it?
TIFF.net, and you'll click on various things that'll send you sort of through the deep into the TIFF.net architecture and off to the Ticketmaster site to get tickets, and it's great. I think it's been a lot of buzz about that. I've been sort of watching the daily ticket reports and really, really pleased to see the kind of response to our screening so far. Because I think it's like, it's sometimes, because shorts are a particular kind of thing. And
Sure.
people just don't get the opportunity to see them very often, especially not in the movie theater.
Well, and isn't that the case though with TIFF a lot? Like there's so many people who go after the biggies, the ones that are going to be released in major cinemas in a week from now. But then there's a whole other core group of people I think that go to TIFF that are actually looking for these gems that you aren't going to get to see anywhere else in the world, right?
It's thrilling. Like, it's really something I've come to really, really appreciate about the TIFF audience. Having been in different roles and being in that TIFF audience for a long time myself too. It's like there really is this, like, and I it blows my mind how many people there are out there. It just seem to kind of mobilize, and sometimes they come from other cities. They come, they take time off work or school or whatever, or their families, and they're just up for it in a way that, and I've been to lots of film festivals all over the world, and all the big ones, or a lot of the big ones, and it's a really different special thing here, because it's not like Cannes or Sundance, where it's like very much an industry thing, and there's not really a public event like it is here. You don't have that same kind of mobilized movie audience, where and it does blow my mind when I see across the schedule and think, oh my God, there's like 20 different theaters, of like, from like the Roy Thompson Hall down to like Jackman Hall or some of the smaller venues, and they're filled, and there's just people out seeing movies all at the same time, and I'm like, wow, how is this possible?
It's pretty crazy, and for anyone who hasn't actually sort of taken it in, it really is a whole sort of subculture unto itself. That whole I don't know how many acres it is, or how many square feet it is, or hectares, but it's a big chunk of the core that's just kind of taken over by story.
Yeah,
and I think that's pretty darn cool.
it is. I'm just so appreciative, and I just like, it's so, and it's exactly like what I hope for, because we go out, every year, like, just sort of the process. Well, I'll back up a bit, just say what we do at Shortcuts, because so we have our sort of purview, our parameters, or we're looking at films up to about 49 minutes in length, I believe.
Okay.
And
so is there actually an industry distinction that says short versus long?
I think every festival does it differently, a little bit differently, and I think that it's interesting, because there really is kind of a bit of a dead zone. Like, it's funny, because I think most festivals, if they do shorts programs, or if they're short film festivals in of themselves, they usually take things up to around that 45, 50-minute mark. And then there's a bit of a dead zone for mid-length work, where it's like, I think, really big challenge if you're like, maybe if you need a documentary that's maybe an hour long. I think it's like, or a feature, like, it doesn't, I think once things start to get around like the 70, 75-minute mark again, it starts to become like a short feature. But then that's sort of something that becomes more programmable again. But really, it's tricky, and certainly there's lots of places we get work from where the convention may be, it's not unusual for people to make 40-minute long, 45-minute long films, but they're a huge challenge for us to program, because it's just, you play one longer work, that means many smaller works that you're equally fond of and really want to play. It's hard to kind of, to weigh that out. But we do definitely try to find room for longer pieces, but it's always a challenge when you have finite real estate.
I mean, is it a preference for you as programmer? Do you sort of have to say that you've drunk the Kool-Aid on this one, or do you, or is it a different sort of lens or skill set that you need to watch a short film?
Well, it's definitely a couple of things. I mean, certainly having, I typically watch many hundred shorts a year, both for TIFF and at other festivals, or out of interest, and you do develop an eye for it, and it is like, I mean, it's really not so different than thinking about short story writers versus novelists, and there are certainly people who are very very good at short stories, and maybe the novels not so much, or it just isn't their forte. I mean, it's funny talking to filmmakers about it too, because it's like there's definitely it's a different set of muscles to a large degree. Like it's not just about kind of like working at shorts and as a way of kind of getting towards features. I mean, shorts often is it's a whole other beast. It's a whole other thing to master, and certainly there's things we see that are, you know, like everything you're going to want from a feature, it's somehow all there in 9 minutes, and you don't exactly know how that magic works, but it does.
Right. Right.
Or there's films where same thing, maybe it's 30-40 minutes, and you're like, wow, there's a richness, there's a density, there's a complexity of this work that really, it's not like you look at it and just think, oh, this would be great if it was longer. It's like, oh no, it's like it's all there. And that's something I think that we're, no matter what it is, that we're kind of looking for that sense of sort of coherence and complexity and completeness in everything we play, and whether it is like
What,
2 minutes or
Jason?
40.
2 minutes or 40. Tell me something. Why do you think somebody makes a short film? Why is it a practical distinction? Is it, what, I've told my story in 2 minutes and 43 seconds, like, and I'm not trying to be trite there. I mean, I would think most directors, most writers are pretty intentional about the work they do, and they go, okay, here's this 7 minute short. You know what? If we can get 7 minutes done, I think we've got the makings of a longer film. Is it a practical thing? We can get funding for it if it's short. Is it an artistic kind of a thing? I mean, it's never one thing or another, I suppose. It's a combination, but I'd love to hear what you have to say about that.
And it certainly is, like, sometimes it's a very strategic thing. I mean, certainly it's something where, and we get a lot of work that is by younger filmmakers, emerging filmmakers, people who are finishing school, just out of school, still like in the middle of school, and they're like doing incredible work. And certainly it's something you associate with sort of filmmakers, as they're just sort of coming out of the gate. And
Right.
some of them really do are like kind of, getting their feet, getting their stride, getting their voices. And that's something that, it's, I mean, for developing filmmakers, is maybe something that's going to be, you don't want to necessarily bite off more than you can chew. So biting off, like,
Right.
getting that sort of, figuring how to do a solid 10, 15, 20 minutes worth of work is really, I think, a big important step in that.
Sure.
And so there's certainly a ton of that work that we see and we program. But then there's all these other, I think that's also something that there's certainly filmmakers who make features, who do all kinds of other work, and recognize the short form as something that is a place that they can experiment, or it's a place where, like,
Mm.
there's great ideas that are like 5 minute ideas or 10 minute ideas, and they're not things that are going to be a feature, or they're going to be a whole documentary or what have you. It's just like, that's what the idea needs, and that's how it lives, and that's what you get. And it's great when they can sort of nail that. I mean, certainly there's lots of filmmakers, and this is or even just sort of testing out ideas. Like, I think there was
Sure.
one that we're really excited to play, is a new one by Brandon Cronenberg, son of David, and very much a sort of filmmaker in his own right. And he's had shorts played with us, and he has actually has a brand new feature that he's just finished shooting, and his new film that we're playing this year at Shortcuts is something that is really kind of, you see that maybe that sort of like parallel ideas that he was working through for the feature, but also just, kind of a bit of a testing ground for ideas, or testing ground
Right.
for a look or a tone. You can see filmmakers often come back to shorts to do that, to sort of go, well, I don't know if this is going to work, or I just have this weird idea and I just want to see it through. And maybe it's not something that's going to be my feature. Maybe it's just to see if this works. And that's something that certainly is part of it. So there's all
I
that
think
sort
the
of, oh,
idea,
sorry.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, go ahead. I was going to say the experimental side of it, I think, is probably bang on. I mean, I wonder too if, as a filmmaker, if you look at say a 90-minute film and you've got 6 chapters, 6 pieces of 15 minutes long, you've got your 6 shorts, where's the thread? Where's the
Mm-hmm.
intentionality? How are we going to, cross each one of those bridges, that as a chapter, and we end up with this full-length feature doc or full-length feature narrative. I mean, it certainly can go both ways.
And it really is something that you really like again and again. And certainly we've had people who've had really, really strong shorts that they've subsequently gone and sort of done the feature version or expanded, or maybe they already had the feature in mind or even written or being developed, and they just figured out a way to kind of like, okay, well, let's just try this and do this. And like, certainly one of the famous examples is Whiplash, which I'm pretty sure actually was kind of being developed as a feature in tandem with the short. But the short, if you've ever seen the short, is just like this. it is just a scene like that. The short is something that exists within the feature, but you realize, oh, this is like a perfect short, because kind of it just is this distillation of so much that ends up being in the feature
Right.
anyway. But it's kind of there. It's a standalone scene, and it's something that totally works as a short. There's another example of that this year with a film called The Climb, which was a sort of a short that was at Sundance just last year, and has now been expanded, and it's, I guess the big first scene of that is the short itself. Again, these sort of standalone items, but I think that's kind of something that is smart filmmakers also can sort of use the short as kind of a combination of like kind of testing ground and proof of concept and this sort of thing. But the danger, and we see a lot of this going wrong as well, that people kind of just like, oh, I'm just going to do this short so I can kind of get some buzz about my feature project. But the short doesn't work often because it doesn't have like
Right.
a beginning, middle, or ending. It maybe just has
Right.
like
Sure.
a cool idea and then like no
Sure.
execution. Whereas you do need to
Well,
have
and
it.
I wondered too the difference between, say, a trailer or a promotional piece and an actual short film, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can edit a killer 2.5 minute video, but does it mean it's a film? And I think there's lots of different ways of looking at that, I suppose, from an artistic point of view. But yeah, to your beginning, middle, and end comment, where's the actual narrative? It's a fascinating craft, or part of the craft, it seems to me. I know Ann Shin, a local Canadian filmmaker,
Mm-hmm.
my enemy, my brother, I believe she made as a short
Mm-hmm.
originally,
Oh, very, yeah, for
and
sure.
then went on to make the full length feature, and I believe was able to raise significant funds because of it. I think she was nominated for an Oscar for the short. So pretty impressive place to be, and I love that TIFF highlights them. So you got 55 of them this year,
Yes.
and 6 of them are documentaries,
Yes.
and then 49 narratives. We got Brandon Cronenberg, and I can't wait to see that. By the way, what's his new film called?
It's like, let's see if I can get the title right without looking at it. I think it's Please Speak Continuously and Describe Your Experiences as They Come to You. I think I got that right.
That's great. I can't wait to see that on a bumper
Yes.
sticker. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's
Yes.
that. There's two. There's another a great one. It's another one of our Toronto films by so an actress and filmmaker and writer named Sophia Banjaf, and her film is called. Let's see if I can get this right as well. I'm in the world as free and slender as a deer on a plane.
Wow. That is quite a
Yeah.
title. Love it.
Yeah. And yeah.
Sounds well. It sounds like a poem,
I
actually.
think she told me what the line was from, and now I've forgotten, but I believe it is in fact that is the source. And I think it's and this sometimes the titles need to be 20 words, and there's nothing wrong with that.
There was I'm going to help me out here. Maybe 10 years ago, when cell phones, flip phones, just started to have video on them, and they were terrible. And I remember, just before the showing at TIFF, it could be longer than this. I don't know. You're going to have to help me here, but they played about maybe 7, 20, 30-second film, and it was shot on a bell
Mm-hmm.
phone. And of course it was, tied to an advertisement and so on. But I remember being like I remember it buoying my
Mm-hmm.
spirits, if I could say that, in the sense that, wow, this is clearly going to change everything. And I mean, that's like the understatement of the century, right? Jenna Bass a couple of years ago, High Society. I don't know if you saw it, but filmed largely on an iPhone, except for some drone shots. I mean, it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful film. It's a stunning film. I interviewed her at TIFF a few years back, and just remarkable what's going on in the world creatively too. Yeah. Anyway, so 55 films, international. We got premieres. We got. Can you tell us a little bit more of this smorgasbord that we've got to look forward to?
Yeah,
And then we got to make sure we remind people of where they can get tickets
for
too.
sure. And it's something I think really we're very proud. Like I work with this year my new partner Robin Citizen and we're sort of the brain of the top of or the sort of top of this pyramid of this team, because it does take a lot of eyes and a
Yeah,
lot
I bet.
of scrutinizing to go through, because we get 4,500 submissions, and it's a lot of work and a lot of often very good work. So there really is. Part of the challenge is really only getting to play a fraction really of really strong work. So it's really a lot
So
of factors
I
come
think,
into play.
Jason, the critical question is, we'll get back to the 4,500 submissions in a second. Does Robin have a good excuse for not being a part of this call today.
I believe. I mean, it's. I think we both. I think there was probably I'm going to say that probably the last chances to see her kids for a couple of weeks. It's always a good excuse. Like my daughter just got home upstairs, so
Okay.
you always want to make sure
Yeah.
you take the precious moments you have before Thursday morning
Yeah.
comes, and it's just and it's the whirlwind.
Yeah, no kidding. I am so teasing, but please pass on my regards. And I hope she smiles too, if and when she listens to our little chit chat here today. So yeah, 4,500 submissions. How, pray tell, do you weed through that and make the right decisions?
You just do it. I mean, you have all these sort of different things. I mean, you really want um, like diversity and the many definitions of that word. I mean, you really want to find new, fresh voices and perspectives you've never encountered before. You want to find those stories from places that you don't, you just, that aren't, the obvious or the sort of overrepresented. You want to find, I mean, all kinds of just all kinds of filmmakers, and it really is. I mean, we have, I think, 55% women directed or co-directed films, and that's and I think it's something that's not even that's just what the pool of submissions is. That's who's making the work and the work we want. So it's not like we sort of have any kind of struggle to find that's diversity, because it's there. Actually,
Right,
people are
right.
out there making these films.
And that's the good news right out of the gate.
And we have a real luxury when it comes to that, because I think historically a lot of the opportunities narrow for a lot of people as they get further along. But we have this amazing pool of new talent from all around the world, and it's I think and one of the big challenges is just sort of finding that balance and really going through very thoroughly, and you're looking at places where you get a lot of really strong work. You see all this stuff from Sweden or Israel or Australia or America or Argentina, and part of the challenge is like, wow, I'm watching all of these films from all of these places, but I just want to find like that one film that somehow is a cut above or different, or something more exciting about this than we can play. And that's something I think I'm really appreciative of working at TIFF and having the kind of freedom, because we don't have, we do, we play, I think, about a third Canadian films, but beyond that, we really are getting the most international selection we can get. And it's really important to us to find strong, amazing work from Africa and the Middle East and South America. And there's countries that we have films that we rarely get work from, like Costa Rica or Nepal. And that's super exciting. It's, even though we do get like a ton, it's you get a ton of work from America or France, but it's something
Sure.
that you really want to find the stuff that's exciting from other places. And often it's because they're doing new things. They're not doing things that are kind of conventional or expected. So all that sort of comes together, and you do just go through a lot of films that are, maybe like, I always think about the example of going through many hundred coming of age stories, because that's something that you get a lot of variations on that kind of thing. And you do get these sort of weird conversations with me and Robin, where our two brains are trying to process this information, and we think, well, we can only take which coming of age story is the one, because you're not going to fill you could just fill the program with coming of age stories, but that it's not necessarily what your audience needs.
I want to talk about a couple of short films that have had a huge impact on me. And, but before we do that, do you guys have like a checklist? The way you get you go for a job, and they get 100 resumes, and the ones, this is the theory anyway, right? Yeah. The ones that aren't that have colored paper, they go in the garbage. The ones that have spelling mistakes in the garbage. Like, is there a way of sort of filtering through those 4,500, a template, a checklist, or is it just way more organic and nuanced than that?
It's always such a combination. Like, I think that it really is like there's some element of surprise that I think it doesn't have to be endlessly weird. It's kind of like, it just is something that's surprising. Sometimes it's stuff
so you're going to turn down my short next year then.
Promise.
Endlessly weird, check.
Yeah, we do. It's a pretty good year for weird. I think we've got quite a bit of weird, but we also have like a bunch of really touching, like very emotional and poignant work too, or really funny work. It just is, I think it's just something that kind of has, one thing for me that's always a big thing, which is a big challenge for filmmakers, is is some kind of tonal variation, even within the same thing.
Mm.
Like I see a lot of very somber, serious work that kind of like it hits that note in the first 10, 20 seconds and just stays there. And I kind of feel like, man, I need a bit more. I need something that's going to give me some kind of shift. And I find that that's something we program with that in mind too. So we have lighter and heavier films sort of together, but also within the films themselves, there's some sort of shift or variation. Like I think, and that's something I think really marks an exceptional filmmaker, an exceptional film is just to have that, um, kind of variation and complexity of tone as opposed to, because God knows I see a lot of straight up depressing films
Right.
that I'm just like
Oh,
are totally fine and solid enough, but really don't give me enough, enough to work with somehow.
was Christopher Nolan's first film Following, was that considered a short? It was, wasn't it?
No, that was a feature. It was quite slim. Like I think
Was it a
that's probably
feature?
only like a sort of, I forget what the actual running time is, but certainly 70, 80 minutes.
Was it that long? Okay, I for some reason I thought it was under. I was like, I don't know, 55 minute, and that's I think what's kind of preface my, is there sort of an industry standard that says, Oscar's only going to consider it if it's this long, and I bet there is. I don't know what it is off
I
the top
think
of my head.
the longest the Oscars will usually go on a short is like in the 30, 35 minute range. I think that's some of what they'll
Right.
usually take. And we've had certainly stuff. I think like the last year they had quite a few. We had, I think in the last batch there were two different films that we played at Shortcuts, and they were both around sort of this sort of 18 to 20. And I think a lot of
Right.
our work
Right.
is in that kind of, the dramatic work is in that sort of 16, 17 minute to like 20-ish minute. That seems to be a bit of a sweet spot. I think you can do a lot in that space. And I think that's really kind of, if you're, at that level that we're looking for, that's kind of where a lot of the dramatic pieces end up.
For me, I will never forget. It was probably film school years back. I was doing an undergrad and a specialized honors degree in philosophy, and kind of doing a double major in film at York, and seeing A Night in Fog for the first time.
Mm,
And I've seen it many times since, and in a variety of different settings. Ended up teaching international development and using it in an ethics and philosophy course, and so on. 32 minutes, I'm pretty sure. I mean, talk about packing a powerful punch in, music, contrast,
mm.
juxtaposition, and essays and articles have been written about this for years. But I mean, to say that this short turned my world upside down is probably an understatement. Do you know what I mean? And I'd like to think there are others out there as well. So you don't need a 2.5 hour film to do it. That's what I think is just so remarkable about this part of the craft. You can knock people's socks off in 7 minutes,
Oh
right?
my God. Yeah.
Um,
And this,
yeah, and that's what I love about your program. And then I did remember, by the way,
mm.
Jason, that film we were talking about earlier before we hit record. It's called Half a Man.
Oh,
Christina Kumrich. It's about a 20-minute film, and it was about the Balkan War, and it was about a man suffering from
yeah.
PTSD. And I interviewed these guys, the novelist, and Maya was her name,
Oh,
and
yeah.
Christina, the director. Fantastic and thoughtful, and they brought their families over, and 20-minute film, all this way, all this work. And I gotta say, it's stuck with me that long.
Oh, that's great.
And I've told the story. Isn't that wonderful? I mean, this 20-minute piece that they sunk their heart and life and soul into, and still bubbling to the surface for me. So anyway, I tell that to just toss that out to you as a a catalyst for further conversation, but also just to say, man, is the short is something to celebrate.
It's fine. And I'm happy you mentioned that because I'm like, oh yeah, I know that film. I mean, that was certainly one that I, was very, very happy to have in the mix that year. And it really is just like, I mean, you think about that film and there's so like that's it. Like I think about the sort of complexity and richness and layers that are achievable in such a finite space. And it's almost like I was thinking about how
Mm,
it's really so much about, like, to use a metaphor, like a distillment, or distilling something to sort of this really intense, very, dense, kind of thing. Like you
yeah.
think about, like, it's, I mean, sometimes a film can do that, but in past, we just, I mean, I think about that, like in terms of some of the more intense films this year, like one we're playing, by a Chinese filmmaker who's done really well, and is certainly somebody who's going to be, making big news very soon. He's working on his first feature. This filmmaker named Chu Yang, who won the Palme d'Or for short 2 years ago. And so his new film, which is called She Runs, and it's this portrait of this, teenage girl who's wants very much to stop this sort of kind of dance troupe thing that she's being kind of
Mm.
compelled to be in for family reasons. And it just is like it just is he's a I mean Chu Yang is just so good at this sort of like really just this ratcheting up of tension and to this sort of breaking point, and just to have that kind of sustained thing where it's like a little more, a little more, a little more, and just you have this like this really really perfectly intense like kind of 2 3 minutes at the back end of the film, and then out and you're done. Like it just is something so exciting and so perfect when you can sort of get a film like that where they just like it isn't it's I mean a feature's got to have kind of ebbs and flows, but when you just have this like it just ramps up and then it just
Yeah.
hits that note,
Something
hits that crescendo.
pithy and
Yeah,
powerful.
and that's something I think it's something I was thinking about, like what else do I look for in films, and certainly
Mm.
escalation, like some kind of escalation where
Hmm.
it can be
Hmm.
really subtle, but there's something that is there is a a third or a fourth gear that the film
Right.
finds, and it doesn't have to be some you know crazy cathartic explosion of activity. Like it just can be something very subtle and emotional, but it does find that place that maybe is it really going to go there? Can it go there? And it does. Like that's something again and again I find very important, and I think something that's kind of across the board with the films that we play is like it finds the fourth gear.
Yeah, that's cool. Shortcuts find the fourth gear.
Yes.
There's the sound bite for this interview, and I think pretty good year for weird is
Yes.
also a good sound bite that we can hopefully will be quoted somewhere.
Yes.
Jason, hey, listen, I think we should wrap it up, but I could honestly, no joke, could chat with you all day about Shortcut films, and clearly, I'm going to need to get out and see a few of these this year for sure. Tell me about how ticket sales are going, and I think you said that they've been flying off the shelves in a
Yeah,
sense,
and
or no,
it's great.
books fly off
And
shelves, don't they?
we're
Yeah,
always very happy. We usually get. I mean, it's usually one of those things where we fill up the day of the screening. So I'm always more than happy
right,
to
right.
grab those TIFF goers who are like, "What can I see today?" And I'm like, "Go see the shorts. You
Right.
won't regret it."
Go see.
And
That's
I'm
right.
always and because also because we have filmmakers for I think for almost every one of these films who will be in
Yeah,
town or already in
that's
town because
cool.
they're from Toronto, but just all these people, and they're amazing, talented people who are doing. I mean,
That's
already
cool.
winning
Well, and that
awards.
in
Yeah.
itself,
Oh yeah.
well, and that in itself is just such a huge opportunity, right? Something you're not going to be able to get off Netflix or off, online video on demand. It's just not going to happen. That ability to actually engage with the filmmakers, and like I say, I've seen a few shorts over the years, and Half a Man, episode 212, by the way, a little shameless
Oh,
plug on Face
I
to
gotta go
Face.
back to that because I love that. I
Yeah,
loved that film, and that was really
yeah, same, and they were so
yes.
great. They were just so thoughtful. And part of the reason I remember is because we had this little silly sort of phone booth like thing. People will know what I'm talking about at the Intercontinental that we
Hmm.
used to interview them in, and it was sort of soundproof. And then I had Mark Forster right after that as well, so it was kind of a nice little couple of back-to-back interviews. Jason, I've had a
Oh,
blast. Thank you so much for joining me today. I mean, holy cow, it's just what a pleasure to chat with you. I think I'm still a little pissed off at Robin, but you know what? I'll get over
yeah.
that. And she's hanging out with her children,
I
so
know.
and that's where I'm heading. I'm heading home
And
myself.
she is the
Listen,
sweetest soul, so I'm sure she would
oh,
have
I'm
been here.
so teasing. I am so teasing, and I'm looking forward to when we can do another one of these. Maybe post TIFF, maybe next year. Maybe we can figure something out. But I really appreciate your time. Anything you want to push just before we wrap
Well,
up? Or
one we keep pushing because we just think it's like people are gonna love this movie, and we were just like, oh yeah, we just got to get this in front of an audience. And it's a documentary. It's called "All Cats Are Gray in the Dark" from Switzerland, young filmmaker, and it is just like it is so it is I mean because I mean people do love their cat movies, but this is a very 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 unique cat movie. So
right,
it's just one
got
of
it.
these things that I just feel like how is this made? How it's like is this incredible intimacy. It's really this portrait of a man who just is very invested in the life of his cats,
Wow.
especially
So
the cat
all
that he wants
cats
to
are
get
great.
pregnant and have. He wants to be a kitten grandfather, and it's just like one
Oh,
of these films where
okay.
like shot after shot we were like so surprised and delighted and weirded out, and it's just like wow. So this is one I
Pretty good year. Pretty good year for
oh
weird.
yes, very much.
Um, all cats are gray in the dark.
Yes, and that's in number
All
three.
right.
Yeah, screening in number three. So that's
So there's the one. So get online, folks, tiff.net, check it out. That's Jason's big recommendation, it seems, this year. I'm sure there's others. You got 55 to choose from, 6 documentaries. Listen, Jason, so much fun chatting with you today. We've been talking to Jason Anderson. He's the lead programmer for Shortcuts at the Toronto International Film Festival. 2019 is coming up in a couple of days. We're almost in the middle of it. Check it out, tiff.net. Jason, thanks a bundle for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for your support. And really, hopefully you'll find another half a man this year. It's out there, I promise.
I hope so too. Thanks.
Great. Take care.